Hi, everyone. Today is Saturday, March 22nd, 2025. Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Morgan, and this is a talk I host twice a week to discuss my experiences on the path of soul transcendence. This offering is brought to you by the movement of spiritual inner awareness with the encouragement and support of my friend John Morton, who holds the mystical traveler consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness that allows us to do the work that we're doing here today. If you're new to the call, the format is simple. We're going to start by calling ourselves forward into the light, which is calling our awareness forward into the light of God that's already present. And then we're going to chant three Anai hues. Hu is an ancient name for God, and Anai invokes quality of empathy and compassion. And then I'm going to play a video clip from my teacher, John Roger. And then I'm going to do a reading from St. John of the Cross. And then we can talk about whatever you would like. So I see my friend Ron here, so I'll have him call us forward into light, and then I'll put on a beautiful track of an IHU for us to chant to.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Oh, well, gosh. Lord God of all creation, we come forward this morning with love in our hearts, realizing that love is all there really is, ever was, and ever will be. We say to you, Lord, we are here to do your work in this world, and we ask for your guidance, and we have your loving. So be it.
If we were to say that God is one thing, if we could do it in a word, what do you think a word might be to describe God as an adjective? You're getting pretty close. Can you think of God as not being total? If you have, you got a wrong working definition of God. God is complete. God is total. Does total mean that God could be in parts? The old pi routine. God is total and has parts, but they all connect together, either by that that encircles them or that goes through them. So is the human personality, much like that. If you're sitting here with your ego in this part, and these parts here are negative, and you want to be God, total, complete, what must you do? You've got to get these parts in the pattern. The way you get them into the pattern is to change over your sense about them and stop judging them, because they will not judge you back if you don't judge them, and start to love them, and they convert to a positive element inside of you, and you become total, complete, and you feel great.
All right. This is by Saint John of the Cross. Without a place and with a place. Without a place and with a place to rest, living darkly with no ray of light, I burn myself away. My soul no longer bound is free from the creations of the world. Above itself it rises, hurled into a life of ecstasy. Leaning only on God, the world will therefore clarify at last what I esteem of highest grace. My soul revealing it can rest, without a place and with a place. Although I suffer a dark night in mortal life, I also know my agony is slight. For though I am in darkness without light, a clear heavenly life I know. For love gives power to my life, however black and blind my day, to yield my soul, and free of strife, to rest, living darkly with no ray. Love can perform a wondrous labor, which I have learned internally, and all the good or bad in me takes on a penetrating saber, changing my soul so it can be consumed in a delicious flame. I feel it in me as a ray, and quickly killing every trace of light, I burn myself away. All right, Samine.
Hi, Jeffrey. Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Oh my God. Thank you. Um, since last Monday, I have a sense that I am carrying something unpleasant in me, in my consciousness, just and um well, there were a few, I can think of a few things. And my question is, sometimes I tend to get into fear when I feel unclear, even though we have all these techniques and beautiful, powerful tools. I have been observing my fear the whole week, and I am open. Like, sincerely, I'd love being clear from whatever. I feel better, but I have a sense that it's still there. And yeah, I would like freedom from that fear when something feels unclear, and I can use help with that too.
Are you aware of what you're afraid of?
Um, I might be that, and that's it. That thing can be more powerful than who I am, which I know is not true, but yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I think I know something. Yes, I think I'm afraid of my own capacity of complicating the thing more than what it is. That's a real source of fear for me.
Yeah, you tend to create a torture inside of yourself in relation to your desire to control.
That's so true. Yes.
Yeah.
But someone really recklessly, and I would like innocently, just threw it out on me, not exactly with those words, but in a, like, reciting a sort of an astrology, something that had to do with me feeling suppressed and oppressed in relationships, and feeling limit in relation, which, from what I hear, is another way of saying what you just said has to do with control. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think the first question you asked and the first kind of point about you started this out by saying you were carrying something since last Monday. And I think the first question to ask is who's carrying that?
Um, I oh, you want me to answer that?
You can, or I could
Yeah, go ahead.
talk more about it.
Yeah.
So there's a couple ways to look at it. Oftentimes we tend to focus on the event, the occurrence, whatever it is, the story that we're seeing. And underlying the event, there are patterns of occurrences. And what we do in some of the work that we do when we start to track is we observe the patterns. And from the patterns, we start to observe the structure of behavioral karmas that we have, and the structure and frameworks of right and wrong, and the structure and frameworks of how we relate to the world. And then underneath that, we find a paradigm, which is the framing of how we categorize our reality and all the axioms and assumptions that we created, such as, I'm a woman, I'm from this country, I speak this language, I do that. Those are all more of a paradigm level. And then underneath that, we find the identity. The interesting thing is, I've cleared a lot of those levels in relation to something that's upset me. But until I question the observer herself, I often can't find freedom. So that's why I'm asking who's carrying this thing? Because we tend to operate from a version of ourselves and we assume that this is who we are. This ego, this thing that's constructed is who we are. But the reality is, this thing that we call ego or identity or I am or whatever that is, that I that judges, that I that controls, that I that does those things, is just a system configuration. It's that thing that is produced in order for us to experience. It is a unit of experiential reality through which we perceive. The soul is that which observes that process in order to gain experience. So if you ask the question, who's holding this, you might find the answers very interesting. The answer might in fact be, well, your mother's holding this. Or it might in fact be, well, your friend growing up is holding it. It might in fact be your genetic level is holding this. It might in fact be. So we assume that because we experienced upset in relation to an occurrence, usually somebody violating the rules that we set for them, then we take ownership of that and say, you broke my rules. And we never question whether the rules were yours in the first place. But you've been caring for it like a loyal servant, owning this, claiming this, and working with people in this way as if you're this person. But then there's this whole beautiful thing called choice, which is, do I want to function as this being? Do I want to be the one who controls? Do I want to be the one who judges? Do I want to be the one who has these sensitivities that people shouldn't violate? And you don't have to be that person because the soul doesn't have those sensitivities. The soul doesn't have all those things. And the more that we reference from the soul level as a foundational beingness through which we source our actions in our life. And for me, that's a lot about zooming in. If I create a lot of ideas and concepts about my life, I tend to just get ideas and concepts about my life. If I zoom in and just say, Lord, what would you have me do? And then I just simply focus on loving and serving the one in front of me, there's not a whole lot of leeway for the rest of the junk in my consciousness to do its number, which there's plenty of junk in my consciousness and there's plenty of numbers I know how to do. So if you can zoom in and simplify, it becomes less of a focus. And when we start to understand that that mind that we were given, that we were born with, that we're part of our karmic level, that works very quickly at categorizing and interpreting. In your case, it might even be, since you're very sensitive, usually you're looking for the implication, like what does this mean in the larger sense? So somebody did this, therefore what does it mean? What did they really mean by that? And is it because they don't like me? And is it because they do this, or is it because they do that? And you extrapolate all of that, and it's very, very complicated when the answer is usually, when most humans I work with, the answer is they did what they did because they did it, because they had a karma that was fulfilled by them doing it. And most of the time, it really had nothing to do with me because, people aren't really good at thinking beyond their own karma. I don't know if you've noticed that. Most of the people that think they're talking to you will project on you. They're going to go, "Oh, I had a great conversation with Samne," and you'll be like, "I don't know what they're talking about. They were just talking to themselves the whole time. It was the most bizarre thing in the world. I don't even think they talked to me once that entire conversation." And yet somehow we think that they think, "Oh, they're thinking this about me." How can they think this about you? They've never even talked to you. They don't even know what you are. Most people just don't see beyond their own karma. And that's really okay because that's actually, we're here to work the karma. So that's great. But what cuts through all that is the simplicity and the clarity of loving the one in front of you.
Well, that. Yeah. Yes, that. Like the best, I think the closest I have ever felt to really loving has been neutrality. And I don't know. Um, well, I want that. I'm going for that. I have that intention, and I would love being that person who loves and serves the one who's in front of me.
But you are that person when you're not encumbering that flow.
Okay.
So how you get back to that is always an inner process because there are no people outside of you creating problems for you. Your problems are always inner problems, and they're your problems. They're not anyone else's. So it's like you're demonstrating with the whole, you've probably heard that whole Buddhist fable. You know, you're demonstrating the whole like somebody was walking in a marketplace and the person stepped on his foot and he felt slighted, so he grabbed a hot coal to throw at the person and burned his hand terribly. It's like in the process of attempting to justify, vindicate, be the arbiter of justice, you end up hurting yourself. That's almost always the case. Againstness is always that double-edged sword that hurts us. So ultimately, so ultimately, that part of you that's attempting to fix and rectify an experience you think shouldn't happen, and then your mind keeps banging your head against it, you have a few choices. One of those choices is go back into the experience with JR and Jesus Christ and have them heal the whole thing, and then it didn't happen. Bring whoever you want, bring a spiritual form, and then heal it, and then it never happened. You don't have to live as though this tragedy, horrible thing happened, or this little thing happened. You don't have to do that. You can clear it in your own consciousness because there's a part of you that thinks that it shouldn't happen. So great, go heal it, and then it didn't happen. That's called forgiving and forgetting. So that's one approach. Another one is start to understand what part of you needed to be in control of that situation, or what was the price you were to pay or the loss that you would suffer because that thing happened. Because obviously you have it wired that if this person violated that rule in your life, then you lost something, or then you hurt some way, or they did some damage, or they did whatever. Like, you got to understand what's at stake in your consciousness and why it was set up, because I mentioned that whole systemic process. You have a structure in there that has it wired that you're not safe if somebody breaks that rule, or you're not, and that just doesn't have to be the case. You have it wired that way, but you're not liking the result of having it wired that way.
So true. Yes. Yes.
So that's why I'm saying you have to get to the root, though, because the other thing I discovered through all this work that I do with consciousness is that there's nothing arbitrarily set up in the consciousness. It was set up in response. Now, it might have been this lifetime, it might have been a past life, but it was very reasonably set up as a way to fulfill you in some capacity. So it was to create safety, it was to create closeness to God, it was to create welcoming. When it was originally set up, there was a very valid intention, and now you're just simply looking at a mechanism that no longer works. It's like it's like if it's like if you had a really, really effective boat that was how you were getting food, and then you found yourself displaced and moved to a desert. All of a sudden, the boat just takes up space, and it's something that you have to keep around, and you have to pay for it and the whole thing. But you're now living in a desert, so it's no longer you still carry it, but it no longer serves the function or has the context where it would be of service to you. Most human consciousness mechanisms that we set up are just that. It's not right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse. It's none of that. It's a very valid response to the ebbs and flows of karma that was set up at a time when it made sense, and it simply doesn't make sense anymore. So what I'm suggesting to you is right now you look at it as there's you're looking at problems. You have a tendency in your karma to look for them, so you find problems. Now, when you talk about the karma, the problems you've got two, you're sandwiched between two problems. One problem is the person behaved in a way that violates your rules. And the other is you don't like being the type of person. So you have a problem because you don't like being the type of person who obsesses over when people break your rules. So you're being ping-ponged between these two problems. And both of them were set up validly at various points in your soulic history. And they just simply don't work anymore. There's a concept in systems thinking, particularly in social constructs and social organizations called accidental enemies. And what it is what they found is different government organizations will set up offices with incentives, with processes, and with resource allocations that by their very design put them at odds with another office. And so everybody's well intentioned. Everybody really wants to do the right thing. Everybody wants to help. But by one office functioning effectively, you're essentially damaging the other office. So accidental enemies. Most of our mechanisms in our consciousness that create strife in our life are just that, accidental enemies. And even if you look at functions within your body, such as like autoimmune or even allergic reactions like anaphylaxis and things like that, accidental enemies. Validly set up mechanisms to deal with environmental change physically that result in what? Can result in death. So your job is not to control, judge, fix anything. Your job is to understand why it's perfect, to love it, to see the source of it, and to love that source into the nothingness from which it came. And there's no againstness or judgment required in that process. that was a lot of information. How you doing?
I am doing like like the moment you started sharing, I started feeling joy and and it was so present. It is present. I'm feeling great. Thank you. And there's a part of me that is sort of stuck on the, well, you know, um, I love the systemic um overview of what happened because that makes absolutely sense to me. I see it that way. That's true. And thank you for, that clarity and the precision of those two aspects that create that in my consciousness. So I what I'm what I feel sort of stuck on is
Do you
um
do you know the other problem you're stuck in between, just to add a third?
just as if there's not enough
Yeah,
already.
yeah. So you also have a problem where if you fully let it go, you'll worry that you're allowing yourself to be walked on. Because being walked on, there's a part of you that doesn't want to be walked on or forced to just, because what you would have to do when you were growing up is you would see something wrong or unjust, and then you would have to shut up and keep your head down and say nothing and do nothing, or else you might end up in jail or something. Yeah. Yeah, so basically you have an unsolvable problem that you've created through these competing mechanisms.
Absolutely.
And so you have, so I'm just adding to your list of accidental enemies in your consciousness.
That's helpful.
But what did Jesus say about enemies?
Love them. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah, exactly. 10
what
points for Gryffindor. Well done. No.
asked. So, but the thing is, like, yeah, you see, like all the roads, you know, uh, how do you say that in English? Men. So what I'm saying is, yes, loving them, and oh my God, um, you added to it, yeah.
I know I confounded your mind.
You know what? It's a question of control. That's
Uh-huh.
what really, yeah. Yes, now I can see it. I
Yeah.
really can a high resolution
So you have this
because
other this
yeah,
other accidental enemy in there called what happens if I lose control?
yes,
And there's
yeah,
like a big boogeyman living in the closet that if you
yes.
lose control, you have to open that and see the boogeyman. So you might want to figure out how that system was set up.
Oh yeah. I
Now, everything I'm telling you, the short circuit for all of this is doing enough SCs, doing enough spiritual exercises, doing enough knowing yourself as divine can actually dissolve these structures without you understanding them at all. And sometimes the Lord
Hmm.
Jesus Christ, just to keep you on your toes, will show up and just wash it away. And then you'll get real confused because you were real angry about that thing yesterday, and now you can't remember how to be angry about that thing. So that can happen too. So I don't want to overly
Yeah.
index on the systemic analysis point of view, but for your consciousness and the way you function, I'm giving you a framework that you probably could use.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's really helpful.
But just be open and available to that thing cleared, and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I wouldn't want to know why.
Yeah, I don't understand how it worked, but I just know that it worked. You follow?
Yes.
Yeah. So that just always leave that door open.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Pamela.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Um, I always just take in what you say to other people and see how fitting it is. But I raised my hand today because my physical body has a concussion, and I can feel what that means in my head and my vision. And the other truth about that, or the illusory truth, is that, I did that to myself. I was swimming backwards and I hit the edge of the very short pool. And so I'd like to get a larger view of this very short story called I'm Very Stupid and I Did This to Myself and Now I've Injured Myself. And I'm all about trying to take care of my body as I age. So there is a bigger story, which is that I've had 4 concussions in my life. And in terms of right and wrong, 2 of them were not my fault, and 2 of them were. So I smashed
Yeah.
into the umbilical twice, and then something happened in other times. And I just kind of wonder what this is all about. And just the other thing I would put in is that all this happened, of course, while I was swimming. And swimming to me is the greatest bliss in the world, the freest space, the most grace-filled, the most joy-filled space. And I've had lots of um, barriers to it, but having COVID for a long time, having surgery, having a fall, etc. So I haven't had access to swimming for a long time, and so I jumped into the pool, and now I'm in this situation where I I want to understand the pattern, but I have a place in me that's worried about what have I done? Am I going to be okay? That kind of energy.
Yeah. So I'd love to examine a few premises with you. So the first is, have you ever noticed that the concept of a mistake and the way that you relate to it implies a fundamental belief that things happen that shouldn't happen?
Yeah, I'm aware of that, and I'm so wanting to have the concept of it's all on purpose and it's all God given, as opposed to it's a mistake. And but where I go is I made a mistake.
Well, yeah, so mistake is used in two contexts, I would say. So the first context is we use the word mistake somewhat innocuously to describe the human process of trial and error, which is another just way of saying learning. And in many cases, humanity has missed learning opportunities by not allowing itself to, quote, make mistakes, because trial and error is in fact how humans discover stuff. That's actually how humans work. So let's just remove that one from the equation and call that form of mistake. When you're talking about mistakes the way you're talking about them, the short answer to your question is you get head injuries swimming in a pool repeatedly. And it's like it's this is not me being cosmic or anything like that. I've heard John Rogers say if you want to know what your karma is, look at the level of your action and look at the results that keep happening. Now, you have a recurring theme called getting head injuries in pools, right?
Well, yes, two of them were in polls, 2 of them were not. Oh no,
Sure.
3 of them were in polls. You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, you have a karma around head injury.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So that's just you fulfilling a debt through head injury. Now, it may be through the grace of the traveler that you can fulfill the debt some other way, but clearly that's a way that you're fulfilling head injury debt. It's not personal. It's a debt that you just had to do it. It's not. So you've got it wired that you've got something wired that head injuries happen that shouldn't happen. Well, actually, they should happen because you have a head injury karma, clearly.
Clearly.
Clearly. So that's premise number one. Let's throw the things happen that shouldn't happen thing out the window and say you're obviously gaining something experientially as a soul by getting those head injuries. Now you may not like it. That's called freedom of choice. You can prefer not to have head injuries and you can do things knowing that you have a head injury karma. You can be extra careful. Like you could wear a foamy swimming cap because you know you're prone to head injuries in pools.
Can you believe that I bought one on purpose and that I didn't wear it?
Of course I can believe that because you have a head injury karma. How are you supposed to have a head injury if you're wearing pads on your head? You knew you had to get that done. See, you're laughing because
Right.
you know it's true.
I know, but it feels so nutty.
Have you ever tried to tell somebody with a real strong karma not to do something?
Right.
And have you ever noticed that they have the most amazing ways of disregarding all the facts and figures and information you give them?
Or even things I've given myself. I really looked hard to find the right kind of
Uh,
helmet
Of
protection.
course. Of course you did. Because you don't like the karma. So, and when there's a karma involved, there's such a distortion field on our perception. It is it is heroic to attempt to subvert that.
Mm,
The way you harmonize with that, it's like once you're aware you have a karmic flow going, one is pray,
yes.
ask for the Lord Jesus Christ, ask for JR, ask for the traveler, ask for John Morton, ask for whoever to help you moderate, clear. Can I get head injuries in the sleep state? That would be nicer than getting them in my physical body. You see? So
Yeah.
there's one thing called you have awareness now, so you're working with head injuries. That's great. The other is it's like if I know that I have a karma with getting in car accidents, I'm going to buy the nicest car insurance they sell. I'm going to buy the platinum level and I'm going to pay extra because I don't want to have a single care or worry in my consciousness when I get in an accident. I want to go, oh, cool, I did my accident karma, and now I get to have the executive royal luxury treatment where somebody brings the rental car to my doorstep, they tow away my car, they say nice things to me and spray perfume in front of me as I enter the car. And because I know I have that karma, so I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to do my SCs on it. And if for some reason the karma shifts later, I go, oh, thank you, Lord. This is awesome. You're in charge. I love this. But I'm also going to be like, hey, if this is the karma I'm working in this lifetime, I'm going to work it in my advantage. I'm going to work it to my advantage. So
Well,
it
go
may
ahead.
be very difficult for you to do something like remember to put that head protection on. So you might have to buy 20 of them, 30 of them, and leave them around the house. Put it in front of the door. Put one on the seat of your car because you know you have a karma. You know that you have a thing that loves swimming more than anything. Like your basic self was a mermaid, and now you get to that
Well,
kind
that's actually true to
of,
some extent. Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. In any case, gotta keep my mouth shut more. Anyway, um, so there's a part of you that's going to pull you into that experience, and part of that wiring may cause you to want to reference more to that expression, which is not compatible with the dimensions of your physical body in this
Wait,
life.
say that phrase again. I want you to back up a couple phrases.
Sorry. So if hypothetically, if your basic self was referencing from that form and had you move in joy,
Oh,
freedom,
okay. Yes, yes, freedom.
and if the dimensionality of the physical body is not compatible with that movement
Got it.
or that measurement or that perception of space or proprioception, that would make one prone to head injury.
Oh, oh, I mean,
However,
wow. Yes,
in either case, it only happens if it's permitted karmically.
right. Right, otherwise it wouldn't. But it does, it really feels so resonant when you say, that part of me does, it has total freedom and no
Yeah, and then
wall.
it has the
And
inconvenience of
then
a
and of
long physical
ouch.
body. Yeah, exactly, that gets in the way of the movement. So my point in saying all of that is it's about cooperating with it. It's about cooperating with the karma that you have. It might be about spending time with the basic self before you get in the water and say, "Hey, I just want you to remember my height
Yeah,
is this, my width is this, and I don't move this way, you know,
right. No,
right?
that
So
that
that can
sounds,
be helpful.
I can really relate to that. You know,
The other thing that can be helpful is leaving 20 or 30 padded helmets around your place so you remember to wear them when you swim. I mean, this is just very practical, loving
right,
ways of working with your karma. And
right.
the other thing is having a sense of humor about it. Because as soon as I started pointing out to you that, hey, there might be a pattern here, maybe it's not that it's a mistake or that it shouldn't be that way.
I
Maybe it
was so,
should be that way. You just don't like it that way, and maybe you can work on it. But the thing is, when a karma is set up, you have to understand that the default is the karma is served, and you have to work real hard to work outside of that.
right, right.
So it's not about, oh crap, I hit my head. I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I did that. You're like,
That's where
oh,
I was. Yeah.
you're like, it's actually more like, oh, wow. I guess I wasn't able to withstand the current this time. I just got swept away. And then you go into compassion and loving with yourself. And the other practical part of it is, got it. I have a proclivity to traumatic brain injury. I'm going to find a skilled practitioner of NOT or a skilled practitioner of like, there's so many good practices and techniques for rewiring the nerves and working with traumatic brain injury. I would have one of those people on speed dial.
What's NOT, Jeffrey?
Oh, so yeah,
NOT?
I don't
Okay,
look
just
it up.
I'll write it down and look it up.
It,
Because,
it
I
came
mean,
in.
really, but it's very important because this marries with a long-term thing I've been carrying about, so many of my family about Alzheimer's. And so I'm just about 80. And so carrying around the fear of Alzheimer's and losing my mind and all that. So this intersects with it.
Yeah, I think that it stands for neural organization technique. Anyway, point being, there are practitioners of that. There's also practitioners of other methods. There's folks that work with the biofield. There's folks that use photon therapy. There's a lot. But I would just start looking into how to heal that and not be a victim to it.
That's great.
And
Yes.
it's yeah, because it's like if you're gonna ride horses, you better get real comfortable with the concept of falling on your ass. That's just
Mhm.
like part of the deal. But then the skill is how do I fall on my ass in a way that I don't cause permanent damage to my coccyx? And how do I find a way to get up real quick and get back on the horse just as quickly as I fell without causing structural damage? You see what I'm saying? So it's like there's a
Yeah. Oh,
practicality to it.
yes.
If we spend all of our time judging the fact that something happened, or the fact that our life is this way, or the fact that I'm built this way, that is time we could be spending cooperating with it. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're all real honest with ourselves, how much time and energy are we spending out of our day editing ourselves, regretting, having guilt, trying to change something in our mind versus changing the action level? If we're real honest with ourselves, I think we would be shocked. And if we're still experiencing the cognitive dissonance of that, maybe go to your bank statement and then look at how you spend your money and see how that indicates how you relate to your life. There's plenty of feedback loops if you want to look at them, but I can tell you right now that I've worked with tons of people who have all spent a lot of time on those things that are not in any way productive. They don't add anything to their life. I mean, it's like, and it's interesting. All it takes is a reframing, and then people just go snap out of it. Like I was talking to a friend of mine the other night, and I might have talked about this already, but he started. Yeah, I did talk about this. So my friend started a YouTube on watches and he got a corporate job and he was debating whether to do it. And I said, well, and he was just really stuck. And I said, well, on your deathbed, are you going to regret having like not working enough? Or are you going to regret not going after the watch business? And then it was like, it was instantaneous. He just went and did it. It's like, and it's an interesting thinking. Like you're spending your time and energy on something. On your deathbed, are you going to think, oh, I wish I would have done more worrying? right?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I would have judged myself even harder for hitting my head.
Right.
That's
Oh, not
what you
enough judgment. Well, I think my judgment really released when you talked about my basic self and how it's red, it's a dolphin or something. And a heart thing just opened in me for the basic and how I could be helpful to it and acknowledge it. I mean, I felt
do.
like it got
Exactly. It's
acknowledged there. And it was so
cooperation,
beautiful.
cooperation and partnership with
Yes.
all the
And
parts of us.
without it being, I wasn't even thinking about it that way, but I was thinking about me as, stupid and bad. And then I have a best friend who is judging me as stupid and bad around this. And so that's really not,
Why would you?
why would I have a best friend who does that, right?
Anyway, that's a
Anyway, it hadn't
a
been so
glutton for
helpful.
punishment, huh?
Yes, yes, but this feels both in the karmic, you know, asking, asking for assistance or release if it can, when it can be. And
And if it
also,
doesn't release and it's for the highest good, Lord, please reveal to me the ways and means of harmoniously working with this situation.
I, and assisting my brain, and also having these lovely talks with my basic. I, I'm in love.
All right, perfect.
Thank you so much.
All right, God bless you.
Bye.
All right, Martin.
Hi, Jeffrey. How you doing? Thank you for
Doing
doing these things.
my
I'm
pleasure.
really enjoying it and getting a lot out of it. Um, I seem to know John Roger inside of me uh, in a way that surpasses understanding. And I seem to know that I'm God inside of me. And I seem to have come to from a place where we were all one. And um, I there's something since I was a child I've wanted to get back to being that. And that has resulted in me trying to please people and trying to fit in that way. And I identify with myself as, this personality and this ego. And I've been spending time recently looking at myself as God and me, and as me and God, and as other people as part of that fabric. And so when I look at you right now, I'm thinking, oh, there's part of me. And that brings up a joy inside of me that I really love. And let's see, I'm also working at staying in the moment, at serving the moment and the person that's here. And I'm looking, I guess I'm bringing this up because I want to increase it and see what my next steps are from here. And I'm crying a little bit because it's joyful.
Yeah, I think one of the one of the tougher stories that I had to let go of, in my experience, and maybe you'll relate to this, is the notion that I'm becoming anything or anyone. Like when you say I want to return to that, or I want to return, now more accurate would be I want my reference point for awareness to be centered in who I truly am, something like that. And I think that your approach of loving the one in front of you and relating to people as part of you has served me very, very well. But there is a point where you kind of have to throw the all the cards in your hand up in the air and you let go of the entire story of the journey and find that you were always the destination. Like you are the way, the truth, and life. And it's not, it's interesting because there is a utility and a value to the hero's journey of traversing the inner and outer kingdoms of heaven. And we talk about soul awareness a lot in the movement of spiritual inner awareness, and it is a very practical reference point. It's like if you're on a long journey. I think John Roger even told this joke at one point about like this guy gets a car, runs out of gas in the middle of nowhere, and then sees a farmer sitting on the side of the road and has a gas can. And he says, "Hey, where's the nearest gas station?" And he says, "Oh, just over the next hill." And so he goes with a gas can over the next hill, and there's no gas station, but there's another farmer sitting there. And he says, "Oh man, the farmer just told me there's a gas station over here. Where's it? But there's no gas station. Where is the gas station?" He says, "Oh, it's just over the next hill." And this continues on for a while until he finally gets to the gas station, and he goes and complains. But the kind of the moral of the story is, if he had been shown, "Hey, you know what? The gas station is like 10 miles away," he wouldn't have had the motivation to get over that next hill. To a large extent, that notion of finding the soul, or the journey of the soul, that whole metaphor of a journey, it keeps us motivated as we traverse into soul awareness, and as we as souls then traverse the outer kingdom of heaven. And it serves us very well, but there's a point at which referencing as a soul who has a story, or referencing as a soul who has had all these lifetimes and all these experiences, and it comes upon me a lot, like, wow, I've been here a long, long time. I've made a lot of mistakes.
It
And
reminds me of something JR said to me, that he told me, sort of like held up a vision of uh, what it would be like to be in spirit. And he said, "You know what that is? That's like a carrot we put in front of a donkey. You get it to go. But the smart donkeys walk into a wall and get it." And I'm still trying to work on how to work that in my life.
yeah, a lot of it is, and I referenced this earlier, we don't question the one looking. Like, there have been a lot of amazing phrases throughout history kind of leading to it. Like, Sheikh Abdul Hassan of Karakan said, "O Lord, bring me to this station where you are and I am not." And what that means, I mean, it means so much, but there's a point where the I am that is lesser gives way to the larger I am.
There's no separation.
There's no separation. We spend a lot of time loving God when there's always an opportunity to just be God loving, or just have love is all that exists. Love is all there is. So there's a way in which the consciousness, by nature of the structure of the narrative of its existence, limits its capacity for the very undoing that will give the full bounty of the kingdom of God. So there's a way in which you have structured a narrative of your existence that has brought you to this beautiful point. But it's like in Sufism, there's a state of holiness and total submission to God, but that's still not the end of the journey. I mean, it's like if you read The Conference of the Birds, which you should take a lot of time to read because it's a very long book. But if you do actually take the time to read The Conference of the Birds, the moral of the story, like the big punchline at the very end, is all these birds are looking for the great Lord, and they discover a mirror.
I have read that. I probably should go back and reread it.
Yeah, it's kind of like Aesop's fables for the Persian culture, I think. But nonetheless, um, at the end, the Simorg turns out to be them, 30 birds. So you, it's like the end of all searching is to recognize that there never was a search, only a misidentification.
Right. I understand that. I'm working to work that.
Yeah, so what I'm suggesting is start to challenge attachment to the reference points that brought you here.
Great.
And it's a strange thing. It's like you get to a point where you let go of the you that ever was. I'm not good at describing it. I'm sorry.
I'm not good at getting it either, or it
Uh,
seems that way, but I should stop telling myself that.
but it's not at the level of story, it's at the level of letting go.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not at the level of vocabulary. And most of the power relationships, I mean, it's interesting. Hierarchy is such a powerful force and such a powerful construct in human consciousness that you can even it finds its way into the language that we speak.
I see that.
You can learn so much about society and their way of thinking just by speaking their language.
Right.
Like it's like learning French. You kind of recognize that even though they got rid of, in a sense, at one point their noble class as a leadership class, the hierarchical nature of it never went because you start using the subjunctive tense and realize, oh, this is a tense that's just used to separate the wheat from the chaff. This is just a tense that's used to make sure that certain classes stay in certain places. There's a way in which we structure the narrative of our existence here that limits the availability to a kind of undoing. And it's never, and without realizing it, the way we talk about our life becomes a story about us becoming and us earning. And none of those are true. It's like when I finally was able to stay in my body to the end of the Golden Temple meditation, which maybe somebody can post a link if y'all don't have it. But um,
I do.
yeah, no, for sure you do. I meant more. But at the end, you will yourself, like you will yourself to the Golden Temple, and the doors open outward. So in a sense, it it's not by climbing the valley and like by the sweat of your brow getting to the other side because you're worthy. And it's not by you forcing the doors open. It's a receiving. And all that's necessary is for you to claim that and to allow yourself to be that.
Yeah, it's a relaxation.
Yes, it's like an exhale or a long sigh or a yawn.
So speaking of language, I'm relating to JR and Christ in me and wanting to have a dialogue, but language gets in the way. I seem to be doing it through thinking and speaking
Yeah.
inwardly to myself. So, any hints about that?
Yeah, it's for me, I remember when JR left the physical, I was looking for him inside of me, and I kept freaking out, thinking that I had been abandoned or something. Thinking that he wasn't there because it wasn't the same experience as when he had a physical body. And then it hit me that um, it was like looking for my glasses when they were on my head, and that I was it's like I was JR Loving, but it was different than looking for JR to talk to. It was being okay with the idea that that I was JR and Jesus Christ and Buddha expressing in all of these ways. And it was less about a dialogue of people and more about a unity of being. And it's a scary idea because you're like, well, who do I think I am to think that I'm JR? And it's like, well, it's not about thinking that you're JR any less than it's thinking about that you're God in the ultimate sense. It's more recognizing when you love someone so much, they become, in a sense, inseparable from your own beingness. And you don't know where you end and they begin, or when they end and you begin. And so for me, it's like I'm always stained with the perfume of JR's presence, and there's no way to wash it out of me.
I feel that way. And I tell myself those things, and then that becomes part of my story, and language is in the way again. So just got to let go of that.
Yeah. And beyond that, for me, it was setting an intention to let go of the one who speaks the language. Let go of the one who's engaging in the karma. Let go of the one. See, a lot of people focus on f going out and fixing a condition when it's really the I that sees it that could be released. The you that you're operating through that can simply become a means of fulfilling the karmas that are there in the physical. It's simply, it's letting the dead bury the dead. It's render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. It's allowing those parts of us, the ego reality, to do what it needs to do on this level because that's what it's designed to do. And let it return to its origin. Let the mind return to the universal mind. Let the body return to the earth. But getting to a place where you're referencing from a kind of a non-being or a no-thingness. But that's all about the who's, that's where you're sourcing from. It's not about words, it's not about any of that stuff. You can use any words on the planet, but if you're sourcing from a level of that is beyond the thingness of it, then words become very, very unnecessary. Like I've been tap dancing for people on this call, but that's not really what's going on from where I'm sitting.
Thank you.
All
God
right.
bless you.
God bless you. Have a wonderful day. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. One quick plug, actually two. There, I think there's somebody could post a link to Best of Super 2. Insight Seminars is trying to raise some money. And then Spiritual Alchemist. Oh yeah, it's already posted. Nice. Spiritual Alchemist, Spiritual Alchemy 2, Part 2, is just a continuation of the fun we've been having in Part 1. It's been really, really great. I love the content that Paul pulls together, and I love being able to share with people on Mondays. And John Morton and even Lee Taylor Young show up from time to time, so that's really fun. And we'll probably continue doing other stuff throughout the year. But yeah, so Best of Super 2 is coming up. You'd be supporting a really good cause and ministry of John Roger on the planet. So if you feel called to be there, I think there's in-person slots for sure, but then also there's observer spots as well that you can have that are just being in the energy of it's pretty awesome. Anyway, and so I'll be there and would love to see you there. And God bless you all. Thank you. Berush Vishem.